Americans across the country today woke up to a rare occurrence in the history of our American democracy. The highest court in our land is preparing to eliminate a federally protected constitutional right, a woman's right to choose. I'm an amateur historian, but I can't think of a precedent in history where the Supreme Court has taken away a constitutional right after it's been in place for 50 years. Women in America may soon live in a country where they have fewer rights than their parents and grandparents. Let me be clear. The leak of the majority draft opinion in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organizations is a breach of the court's confidentiality deliberations. But the draft opinion, which has been authenticated by the Chief Justice, is very real. There was an peculiar political event this afternoon. Senator McConnell, the Republican leader, who has focused more of his energy and efforts on reshaping the federal judiciary to reflect his political point of view, was virtually silent on the issue of this Alito draft opinion on the Dobbs case. He couldn't be pinned down as to whether he would acknowledge it or even say something good about it. Supposedly, it was the answer to his political prayer. He went so far in trying to reach this goal as to protect a vacancy on the Supreme Court for almost 10 months. Anton Scalia died while Barack Obama was still president in his last year of his second term. And Senator McConnell made the argument that he did not have the authority, since he was a lame duck president, in Senator McConnell's words, to fill the vacancy. So the Supreme Court was there with 8 members for 10 months until Senator McConnell's political prayer was answered again, and Donald Trump was elected president and could appoint a justice of Senator McConnell's political liking. So he has been very successful in his approach to filling vacancies on the U.S. Supreme Court with people who agree with his political philosophy. Now, one of them, Justice Alito, is about to hand down an opinion which eliminates Roe versus Wade, a position which is consistent with Senator McConnell's belief that's been stated on the floor many times. And yet, when he was asked today whether he was in favor of this opinion, he refused to even answer. He wanted to focus on who leaked this opinion. Well, of course, that's an important question. The court's working on it right now with the Chief Justice turning as U.S. Marshal on the case. But Senator McConnell insisted on avoiding even taking a position on this draft opinion that has now been spread across America. It makes no sense at all. Women across America are grappling with the very real concern, and yes, you could say fear, that they may lose access to reproductive freedom and choice in a matter of weeks. If true, this decision will end a 50-year guarantee that reproductive rights are protected by our Constitution. If this radical decision becomes the law of the land, it would deny tens of millions of Americans their bodily autonomy. In an instant, abortion would be rendered illegal in more than a dozen states. In this land of liberty, the government has no business interfering with a woman's right to her own reproductive health care. It's her right to choose, plain and simple. But for the past several decades, the far right has fought relentlessly to eliminate this constitutional right. They've waged a harsh campaign to, in some instances, actually punish the women seeking abortions. Here's what I'm describing. In Texas last year, lawmakers passed a law that has turned bounty hunters loose on anyone that even helps a woman receive an abortion. And that Mississippi law that the court's poised to uphold, it makes no exception for women seeking abortion in the case of rape or incest. At a certain point, you have to ask, what is the real goal here? These restrictive laws won't stop people from getting abortions. We know that from history. They only make the procedure dangerously unsafe and in some cases prohibitively expensive for low-income Americans. Women's lives are literally at stake. Furthermore, we have hardly begun to reckon with the consequences of this decision when it comes to other fundamental liberties. I read Justice Alito's draft opinion. It's hard for me to describe it in a few words, But when it comes to issues as fundamental as privacy and personal choice, Justice Alito takes a pretty harsh point of view. He acknowledges the cases that are often cited in the name of privacy, such as Griswold. I can vaguely remember that before the Griswold decision in the 1960s, the decision of selling contraceptives was subject to strict state regulation. And in many states, they prohibited the sale of any forms of contraception. It's hard for America to even believe that when you see forms of contraception being advertised on television these days. But there was a time in the 50s and before when state regulation prevailed. Griswold versus Connecticut, a Supreme Court case, took a look at the regulation in Connecticut and said it's fundamentally wrong. We believe that individuals have a right of privacy to make their own decision on contraception. That was a privacy right, which I respect, and yet, if you're careful, read every single word, you'll never find the word privacy in the Constitution. The Supreme Court found a right to privacy by combining the rights in several other different amendments. That wouldn't be good enough for Justice Alito on the basis of this draft opinion we've been given. He said since he can't find the word abortion in the Constitution, he doesn't believe there's a right to it. And he goes on to compare it to privacy rights, like the one I just described in Griswold versus Connecticut. And he said that is just a matter of saying privacy is your right to choose your own personal lifestyle, or words to that effect. Well, it's more than that. It gets down to the fundamentals. And if you're going to make a decision on something as basic as a family, a husband and wife deciding how many children and when they would have children, it really is one of the most basic things when you define freedom in this country. But that's not the way Justice Alito finds it in the Dobbs decision. If we apply Justice Alito's reasoning behind this draft decision to other rights, the implications are staggering. The Supreme Court could turn back the clock on a whole host of civil liberties. What's next? The return of state bans on contraception, bans on same-sex marriage, bans on the permissible conduct of LGBTQ people in a different sexual orientation situation. All of that could be on the table. Now that Supreme Court has confirmed that this draft opinion is authentic, the members of this Senate cannot delay. We need to hold a vote codifying the right to abortion in law. Let's show the American people where each senator stands. Senator McConnell ducked the question at a press conference today. I still don't understand why, but he can't duck the vote. We're going to make sure that there is a vote and that his members, as well as the senator, have an opportunity to express themselves on the record. Will we allow our children to inherit a nation that is less free than the one their parents grew up in? That's the question which presents itself to the Senate.